You know, you mentioned Muhammad Ali. This is the anniversary of the Rumble in the Jungle, one of the greatest events in the history of boxing, one that you promoted. Tell us about that event, Muhammad Ali specifically during that time, your relationship with him during that time.
Muhammad Ali, I coined the phrase, every head must bow, every knee must bend, every tongue must confess. Thou art the greatest of all times, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali stood for the people, and the people is what's my most important asset. I think that Muhammad Ali coming in and demonstrating under the times and conditions that he was suffering, he was in exile, you know what I mean, and I was about to be sent to the penitentiary. And so what we did is we worked together to bring the focus of the plight of the people to the fore. And so this was during the time of the Vietnam War, as you know, and he refused to take the step in the draft. And all of the critics were doomsaying, ill-saying, and naysaying him. And at the same time, he was talking about the human rights and living up to that great Constitution that we have, one land indivisible with liberty and justice for all. And we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So we worked and planned to do this, and in so doing, we kept the hospital alive, but we also stimulated a thing, and he prevailed upon me. He said, Don, you're the best promoter I ever seen. He said, you should go into boxing. He said, I'm the only free fighter in the world. He said, I'm Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
He said, the rest of them are gladiators and breeders in the center of the ring. He said, they need somebody to represent them because they can't stand up for themselves. And so he prevailed upon me to go into the great sport of boxing. I yielded, and the rest is history. The Rumble in the Jungle, we have the 40th year anniversary this year for the Rumble in the Jungle. And it was a trying situation because when I signed these two great athletes, George Foreman and Muhammad Ali, I wanted to cry with it at home in my beloved country of America. And so I had to go out and search around the world. I got King Faisal for the first one to be my backer, and he got assassinated. And so we were wandering around, and a guy named Fred Weimar introduced us to Mobutu Sese Seko from Zaire. And so in dealing with that, that was the beginning, of putting together one of the greatest events that ever was at the history of that time. I had David Frost coming in from the UK. I had Jim Brown on the microphone here. I had all of the guys that were bringing in the giants of industry of sports and entertainment coming together to let the world know that we were making a move that was a glad tidings. And so it was just simply a wonderful thing. That's why we're celebrating it here in Cleveland under the auspices of Frank G. Jackson. That's our great mayor, and his leadership is there. So he and the governor of the state will be in the audience, and if they can't be, it'll only be because something that has taken them away from what they ought to be. But right now, we are moving forward because tomorrow is the day, the 21st of February. It's going to be a great
Don. I want to ask you about Muhammad Ali because you talked about him. This is one of the most iconic athletes and people in the history of sport. There was a lot of footage of him running through, the village of Africa, showing all these great people that had come out to support him, what he was all about, and that he was more than just boxing. Give me an idea of what he was, the man, not just the fighter.
Yes, he was a man that stood for humanity. He was a man that stood for mankind. He was the true personification and the exemplification of what it is to be an American in a society and what we purport to be. Freedom, justice, and equality. And he stood up and he made his way, and I joined him in the magnanimous effort of what he was doing. Muhammad Ali, no one can truly say how great Muhammad Ali could be, because 4 years at the height of his career, when everything he was really soaring, he had to go into exile. And those 4 years were lost. And then after the 4 years that was lost, he came back and made all these miraculous events and set these miraculous records. So you got to say that he was great. He was the biggest icon, but he could have been the icon's icon had he had those 4 years that he was standing off isolated and being persecuted and vilified and characterly assassinated because he stood up for what was right. And so it's the thing here that he's a humble individual, but he's a strong guy, and he puts his money where his mouth is. In other words, his spirit of standing up was a costly affair. It wasn't about how much more he could make and whether he could get it or how he could get it. But then as the tide changed in this great nation called America, the people of America, when the kids were hollering, hell no, we won't go. Hey, LBJ, how many did you kill today? All of these things were coming out and coming to fruition. And Muhammad stood up and said, why should he be fighting the Viet Cong? They ain't never called him an N. The N word was separated. And
right.
so therefore, it was something that, the people should really marvel in this guy, as I do, because with the faith in God and that abiding faith, he has established a trend of action and a method of life that demonstrates, categorically that the system is one that makes wrong right. You know what I mean? And so we have to realize that we treat the effects, but we don't go after the cause. Muhammad Ali was after the cause. I join him in being after the cause.
Don,
that's what counts.